So good Erev Shabbos, Parshas Chodesh. Baruch, you have the Moilid. Good. Everything is good. We are finishing a sugya. We had a machlokes in the Mishnah between the Tanakh of Yehuda in a case where a person rented something for someone. He consequently lent it out, and the person's rishus that he lent it to, an oinus happened. And now he swears to the seicher, the renter swears to the owner of the animal that an oinus happened and I'm potter, because at most I'm a shem esacha is potter b'geneva. So the Tanakh now the shoyel who's chayiv be'oinsin would pay the seicher. Says Rabbi Yossi, Kate said, how's it possible that if Kate said right, how can this guy possibly do business with somebody else's chayfetz? So we're up to that 2 lines in the bottom on Lamed Vav Amid Beis. Am Rav Yehuda Mishmuel Allah Rabbi Yossi. The Allah is like Rabbi Yossi. Amalei Rav Shmuel by Yehuda le Rav Yehuda. Amid La Mishmei de Shmuel. Now, so Rabbi Yehuda said to us in the name of Shmuel, Cholek Haya Rabbi Yossi Af B'Yishayna, and Allah K'maisay and Allah K'maisay. Does Rabbi Yossi argue even in the first Mishnah in the Perek? What was the first Mishnah in the Perek? This guy did business with this other person's object, right? Something was stolen from him. He didn't want to swear to, he could have sworn and got off the hook. He paid for it, and as a result, he was makna him the kefil. The Gemara views it as what? As going ahead, you're making kefil on your friend's object. Again, so would Rabbi Yossi, just as he disagrees by seicher and shoyel, you can't make money on someone else's cheshbon. Also, in the Reisha, by kefil, you can't make money on someone else's cheshbon, even though you pay for it. Okay, we'll see that's the distinction. So says Amalei, so he told him, Rabbi Yehuda said, Cholek Haya Rabbi Yossi Af B'Rishayna. And he argues in that case as well. He argues in that case as well that even if you pay l'chayra, you would not get the kefil. B'halacha k'moisi Af B'Rishayna. Itmanami Amar Rabbi Elazar Cholek Haya Rabbi Yossi Af B'Rishayna. Rabbi Yossi indeed argues in our first Mishnah in the Perek. B'halacha k'moisi Af B'Rishayna. Okay, that's the Rabbi Elazar's report. Rabbi Elazar ben Padas. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Moida Haya Rabbi Yossi B'Rishayna. He's Moida Shekvar Shilem. Shilem le Shilem loy. Rabbi Yossi does not argue. Rabbi Yossi agrees that in the ratio you would get the kefil, that the person Shaimer would get the kefil. Why? Because he paid. Good. In other words, in the seifa over here, where he simply lent it out, it didn't cost him any money. Says Rabbi Yossi, you can't make money on someone else's cheshbon. The ratio, you know why he gets the kefil? Because the owner of the Pikadim was very happy. He had his, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So he had his keren. What's going to happen is going to happen, but he paid for it. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi would agree in the Reisha that the shomer would get the kefil because he paid for it. Now, who said this? Rabbi Yochanan. If you might recall, Rabbi Yochanan also was of the opinion you don't have to pay. You just have to say you will pay, right? You remember, Rabbi Yossi, you didn't even have to pay. You just had to say you will pay. So on that, the Gemara comments, Shilei min loy shilem loy. I varam Chia barabba Rabbi Yochanan loy shilem mamish. Rabbi Yossi does not mean you have to mamish pay. Elakim shama areini mishalem. Since you say I will pay, alpha pi shlei shilem if you didn't pay yet. Okay, so we have a kasha. Ema moidahai Rabbi Yossi. So this is the way you read it. Ema moidahai Rabbi Yossi b'Rishayna shekavar Omar. Of course, he already said. He didn't have to pay. He said he would pay. So there's a big chilik between the Reisha and the Seifa. In the case of rental and borrowing, he can't make money on the persons he didn't pay for the animal. In the Reisha, where he paid for the animal, where he paid for his shmira, that lack of shmira, he paid for because he didn't want to swear. In that case, Rabbi Yossi would be meidah. So we have machloikas exactly what by Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, what Rabbi Yossi holds vis-a-vis the first case. We pass like Rabbi Yochanan that the halacha is shilein v'loy rasul shalim, that you makna the kefil. We pass in the seifa like Rabbi Yossi, ketzur oise b'scharas shel chaver. Okay, next Mishnah. Amal shnayim. Guy says to two people, Gazalti echem mechem, I stole from one of you, mana, the eni idea is mikem, and I don't know which one. So l'chayre, this guy is not being, they're not being tayvei him. He goes over the two guys and said, listen, I stole from one of you $100, and I don't know which one. I don't know. A second case, a father of one of you entrusted me with a mana. The any idea is I don't know which one. What's the lacha? He's moided by himself. He's moided that lot, and therefore the Gemara will explain what that means. And therefore he gives each one a mana. It's interesting to note we have two cases. The first case is where it says I stole, and the second case he says your father entrusted. Why didn't he say that lot? A case of what? One of you entrusted me. One of you entrusted me. I don't know which one. In other words, why don't you stay within the first person? Why are you jumping to a father? Correct? Says the Rush. In that case, it's not only if it happened that one person entrusted him or two, then he's not totally sure. I don't know, but you should know. After all, you're the one who gave it to him should know. Memela, that case you'd be potter. You wouldn't have to pay money to each one. Says the Rush, therefore that case only exists where a father of one of you gave to me, and I don't know. Because it will be the person himself, then it will be a double indemnity, right? He doesn't know and he doesn't know, but he should know. After all, you give someone, you know where your safety deposit box is, you know where the key to the safety deposit box is. He should also know that the one who gave it to him should know. Therefore, that case should be potter. The case of each one gets a mana is a case where the father gave him. Okay, so we have two cases: case of Gesela and the case of Pikadon by the father. Shnayim shefkidu eitzel echad. We had this case very, very early in the Masechta. Two people are mafkid eitzel echad. Zem mana v'zem asayim. This person gives him 100. This person gives it 200. Each one's claiming they're the one who gave the 200. You give each one 100 because Vadai each one has 100. The Hashar and the rest. This is if you might remember, guys, we brought this in the opening sugya of why Shteinwerks and Batalis, why is it different, right? So we say Yechloku, and over here we're saying what? That you Yemunach on the other 100. So again, each one's getting 100, and this is Yemunach. Rabbi Yossi says, I have said Ramai. The one who's lying loses nothing. After all, he's getting his 100. Ella to facilitate, truth and justice and the American way. The whole thing would be munach until Eliyahu comes. So therefore, he's going to take a loss, the liar, and therefore he'll admit the truth. Indeed, Shnei Kalim. You have two kalim, echad yafed mana, echad yafed elef, zuz, ze'oim yafed shali, v'ze'oim yafed shali. Each one says the nice one is his. Nice in as a cotton le'echad mehem, you give the cotton to one of them. Umitoich gadol, nice in the make cotton l'sheni. And from the worth of the gadol, you give the cotton l'sheni. So pashtus, you're selling it, and whatever the cotton's worth, similar to the $100, it's worth $500. You're going to go ahead, right? And you're going to give 100, and the 400 will remain. That's pasha what it means. I know Rashi doesn't learn that way. Look at Rashi learns, guys. Mitoich gadol yishberenu. You break it. Rashi says you break it. In other words, and it's mashma that it's a kli that it's broken has some value. Rashi didn't learn like the Nemuka Yosef. You sell it and take the part. Rashi says you literally the kli itself you break. Anyway. And the rest, the same. Excuse me.
Baby in half.
I don't know. No, he's getting it. He's getting it. He's not losing anything.
Please.
So it's the exact same case as the case before, because each one's getting 100. Each one's getting whatever the kli was worth, and Yemunach, the rest is actually Yavalio. The Gemara is going to make it strichasa. Why you had to tell me the case by money, and why you had to tell me the case by what? By kalim. I'm Rabbi Yossi. I have said a Ramai, same halacha. What's the Ramai taking a loss? Allah call you munach Eliyahu. The whole thing is munach until Eliyahu comes. But the first case of the Mishnah, you have mammon mutal b'safik, guys. You have money that's mutal b'safik. We don't know whose money it is. It's one of them. He stole from one of them, or his father entrusted him. It's money mutal b'safik. Where usually used to what? We don't pass on this. Sumchis is yachloku. We usually pass on hamaytz mechavero, a lov lehevi raya, and we keep the money mecheskas in Mara, whoever's holding on to it. Alma says the Gemara, mesfeka, mafkinim imayna. From Suffolk, you're going to be mafkit, you're going to go, right? It says nice and lezem mana. So what are you doing? It's a suffix. You know what we're doing? We're giving each one 100, even though he only owes 100. He only owes 100. He only stole 100 from one of them. His father only entrusted $100 to one of them. This guy is going to be Suffolk, is paying what? Double. He's paying twice. So you see that what from a Mishnah that you're mafkin mana. And we don't say that what? Keep money in the status quo. Urimini, I'll ask you a stira. Shnayim shefkidu eitz lechad, zeh mana v'zeh masayim, zeh oim shali masayim, v'zeh melishem masayim. Loishn l'zeh mana l'zeh mana, v'ashayim munachat shiyav Eliyahu. Right? So you see that what? And you not might see money. What's the suffix, guys? On the last 100. Each one's getting the Vadai 100. The suffix on the last 100 is Yemunach. And you're not dividing it. You're not saying each one gets 50. So you have Minei Ubei, the Mishnah is Seiser itself in Halacha. The first part of the Mishnah, where he says what? It's 100. You're costing him, you're taking a moment, the suffix, each one's getting 100. The second case, you have a suffix and 100. You're not taking it away, you're keeping it. That's suffix. Again, each one gets 100, but the suffix is the other 100, the extra 100. So what's the there you're not, you say Yemunach. What's the difference? Good. Now, Amalei, so he said to him. Who said to who? It doesn't even say. And I'm always trying to be mocked, but who says to who? It's very interesting. It doesn't say who said to who over here, right? No, doesn't say. Okay. Pikadin agezel karamis. You're asking a stira from Pikadin on gezel. Each one entrusted with 100, and one's 100, one's 200. First case, I stole from one of you. I don't know which. First case, we're taking money out. Second case, we're keeping the status quo. What's your kasha? Pikadna gezel karamis? Gezel the Avedi Surah, where he went ahead and stole. He was over the Israeli Sigzol. Kansu Rabbanon. The Rabbanon is going to cancel him. So it's going to cost him the extra 100. That's the ratio of our Mishnah. The safe of the 100, 200 is Pikadin. Play Avedi Surah. He didn't do an Issa. Like Kansu Rabbanon. And therefore we go ahead and we leave it. So that's the first distinction between the two. Between Pikadin and Gezel, there's a distinction. Case number one, which was case of Gezel, I stole from one of you, I don't know which one, right? We're going to cancel the guy, and he's going to cost him an extra 100. In the case of Pikadin, where, again, his inability was that he wasn't makbid to know who gave what, and he left it up in the air, but he didn't do an act of Gezela. In that case, we'll say that what? Yemunach, the manamil of the suffix, ukimon becheskes mari. Okay, that's fine. However, Rami Pikadin apikadin, Rami Gezel, Gezel. I'm going to ask a steer now. Okay, so in other words, I'm going to ask a steer now that I'm going to give you a case of Gezel where we do leave the money. I'm going to give you a case of Pikadin where we take the money, right? That would be the steer. Again, in our case, Gezel, really it's a kanas. Pikadin, really you're keeping it status quo. I'm going to give you a case of Gezel and a case of Pikadin different. Says more. Pikadin not Pikadin. The Tani Reisha. I avim shalach mihem hifket etzli mana v'ini yadeis mihem nice l'zem mana l'zem mana. So you are taking. This is the case of Pikadin, guys, right? And what are you doing? You're giving a money to both. Now urimini alis yusniya shtaim shef gidoi, right? 100 and 200. Outside guys. What kind of teretz? You told me by Pikadin you're going to keep the money on its status quo, correct? 1 second, it's not true. if your father, if the guy was entrusted by the father entrusted one of them, I don't know which one. What's the din? You give to each one. But 1 second, if you told me that the guy didn't do anything wrong, he wasn't a Goslin, and Uki Mimana Bechase, so why you should just leave it? Let the guy bring a raya to it. Why are you going ahead and mana? That's a stira. Because you just told me that what? Well, you didn't do anything wrong. Yeh munach. And he was saying, no, you give 100 to each one. Amarava, Resha, the Resha, meaning the case of what? Where he didn't know which one, is Kimi Shefkida Lebeshnei Krichas. It was when it was given like 2 bundles. The Havile Lemedak, he should have been careful. Guys, how many people gave him in case number by the father? How many people gave him? Right? 1 person gave. If 1 person gives, you're guilty because if it's only 1 person, I should have been medayik and figured which one. So you did do something wrong. Thus, it's going to cost you what? A mana. That's the ratio where the father entrusted gave it to one of them and you don't know. But you should have known. Only 1 person. So we'll view it as what? Even though it's a funny mashal, guys. We'll view the one as if 2 people gave it to you, which at different times, and therefore you can go ahead and ascertain who it belonged to. That's the ratio where what? Where each one's getting it. But the Seifa, when one gave him 100 and one gave him 200, Seifa Naseh Kemi will view it, Shefkid Lei Bekrach Echad, that they gave it simultaneously. They gave it at the same time. Like Havilei Lemedic, that he shouldn't have been Medayek. Kigoin, the Afkidu Travayu Bahadi Adadi. They came with a bundle, the Chad Zimna, and they came at one time, and they gave him a bundle. The Amr Lahu, he can say to these 2 fellas, Ant Kufaych Loi Kaptisu Adadi. You yourselves are not makbid because you gave it simultaneously, which would lend to go ahead and an act of maybe who knows what. Ano kapdina, and I should be makbid. So there's a distinction. So let's go back to the Mishnah and stick this pshat in. Okay, why is the mana a mana? Because you can't say the Goslin. One second. The next case we're going to have, where you were makbid, one guy gave 100, one gave 200, and there you hey munach. What's the answer? Where it was 1 person who gave you, there you should have been medayek because there was no sweat. Your failure is going to cost you. Zem mana v'zem mana. Next case, shneim efkidu etzlei. Zem mana v'zem asayim. They came simultaneously and they dumped the money on there. Listen, I'm going to view it as what? As 1 guy at the same time, even though it's 2 people, and therefore what? Therefore the din is yeh munach. You were a makbid that you gave it at the same time where it would lend itself to problems. I can't be makbid for you. That's the way to answer the stira of pikodin on pikodin. Now we have another stira, gezel al gezel. Our first case of gezel, what did we say? You're going to go ahead, right, and you are not yehemunach. You're going to take out the money. You're going to cancel the guy. Says the Gemara. For Rami Gesel Gesel, Ketani Hacha, Amal Shnayim Gesalti Lechem Echem, Mana, Ve'eni Yadea Ezem Ikem. Or you Aviv Sholachem Ikem Hifkeli Mana, Ve'eni Yadea Ezem, nice Lezem Mana Zem Mana. We only need the first case. For Mini, Gesel Echad, now this is a Mishnah, guys, in Yavamis, and we just added a Baba Kama. Gesel Echad Mechamisha, you stole from 5 people. Ve'eni Yadea Ezem Ikem, and you don't know. Let me just ring your memory. Rabbi Tarfon says you leave it, and that's it. Rabbi Kiva says that's not the way to be mitzi. Your mitzvah, you have to return to each and every one of them. You have to return to each and every one of them. Good. So the kasha is going to be from Rabbi Tarfon. So Rabbi Tarfon says that, you know what? I'm not going to pay 5 guys. I'm not paying 5 guys. It's a suffix who it belongs to. I'm leaving it. We'll see what that means, leaving it. But the bottom line is, Reb Tarfon is uki memoina. Our Mishnah says what? Zen noitel zemana zemana. And we don't say in Reb Tarfon, cancel the guy to give to all 5, like Rabbi Kiva says. Now, all we have to prove, fellas, is that Reb Tarfon's the time of our Mishnah. Okay, so guys, outside. If Reb Tarfon is the time of the Mishnah, and we'll prove in a second he is, our Mishnah says you have to pay twice. Obviously, you're not keeping the money, the suffix, on a chazaka. The Mishnah in Yavamis says, oh, stole from 5 people. No, you are keeping it chazaka. I'm not going to pay 5 times. I'm going to keep it. And if that's Reb Tarfon, so I'm going to have a steer Reb Tarfon. Says the Gemara. Or a minute. Gazel echem echamisha. The inu yedei esem ehem gazel. You don't know from which one. Zoim oisi gazel. V'zoim oisi gazel. Each one claims that what you stole from me. Meiniach gezela beinehem. You leave the gezela between them. Umistalik, and that's it. You leave it there. Pasha, you let them fight it out. We're going to see that's not necessarily so, but bottom line is, it's guys. How is this ukimones chaske? Because you're not paying all 5. You're not hey mana, right? You're not paying all 5, right? That's the main thing. Divrei Tarfon, Alma misfeika lemafkina memoina. Al sufik, you're not going to be mafka money because you're not going to pay you all 5. Baminon uki memoina becheskas mare. Now, maybe it's not a stira because you're asking on our Mishnah from Reb Tarfon, and our Mishnah is a Stam Mishnah. I'm going to prove to you our Mishnah is Reb Tarfon. That you could ask the stira. How do you know the Mishnah is Reb Tarfon that you could ask the stira? Diktani Allah, because we learned on this that he moide Reb Tarfon's moide to Rabbi Akiva, ba'oimel l'shnayim, gazalti le'echem ikem mana, ve'eni yodea esem ikem, shenois l'zem mana. So we see Reb Tarfon is moide in our Mishnah, right? So really, guys. So it's very interesting. Reb Tarfon is moida in the case of I stole from 2 of you, and I don't know which one. And you're going to say zemana. So you see that you take money out, and you have the Mishnah in what in. So now we're asking for more Mishnah on another Mishnah. Taisus points out you could have asked this Brisa directly because it mentions Reb Tarfon, but it's stronger to ask for a Mishnah. How do you answer this stira? Pasam over there, the Katavile. There in Yavamis, they're being Toiveya. Each 5 guys is saying it's mine. And therefore, I don't know which one it is. So what? I'm leaving it. Hacha, in our Mishnah, this guy wants to get the Chiyuv of Hashava done. He doesn't want to enter Yom Kippur with any monetary cheshbon on him. I don't know which one. Guess what? I'll leave you for both. So really the din is what? 5 people, leave the money and go. Our Mishnah speaking where what? No one was Taiveya him. No one. What's the Lashon of the Mishnah? The Lashon guys in the Mishnah is Amal Ishnaim G'zat Le'ach Mechem. You got? And what does it say? Any Ezehim Noisim L'zemana u'L'zemana Shehoida Mipiatzmai. What does it mean, Hoida Mipiatzmai? On his own will, he's going ahead and being Maida. I want to go ahead and be Yotzei Chiyuv. They can nami the Tani with the Gemara Shoida Mipiatzmai. Shmamina. That's the difference. So any steer you would have, we take care of. The steer of Pikodin to Pikodin, we took care of. If it's only one guy, you're responsible to know. If it's 2 guys who were negligent, then it's not my problem. And therefore, you fight it out, munaf. By Gezel, there's a case where you give to each one of them. There's a case like Reb Tarfon, by 5, you leave it. What's the chilik? By the case of 5, they were Teveya. They were claimed from the guy. He's not coming forth. He doesn't care. I only want to pay once. I stole from one. I'm not paying 5 times. And our Mishnah is speaking about a guy who wants to be, in our lashon that I always use, squeaky clean. He wants to get off the hook, and therefore he's willing to go ahead and pay an extra $100 to get off the hook. But the din is you should just leave it. Just like the case of 5, you should leave. The case of our Mishnah, just one money. Here's the money, you figure it out. Amamar, going back over the Baisa. Pasam de Katavale, over there in Yavamis, the case of 5 guys, they were Teveya. Uma v'halom my time. What does this guy claim? He knows he stole, right? He stole from 5 guys. I don't know which one of you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 come to Harry and says, Harry, you stole. What does Harry claim? What does Harry say? So we have machloikis between Rav Yehuda and Rav Masna, 2 Talmidim of Rav, what they heard from Rav. Again, it makes a lot of sense where you have 2 people arguing about what somebody said based upon the Rashi we saw the other day. Nothing was written down, fellas. Nothing was written down. Nothing was written down. They heard, and each one heard different things, and it wasn't written down to substantiate. So it makes a lot of sense why we have, different opinions of what somebody said. So Rav Yehuda Marav Halosh Shaisik. Harry's quiet. He doesn't say anything. Rav Masna Amar Halosh Sabach. Harry screams. You see, I'm saying share. Got him. His timing is impeccable. Okay. So, according to Rav Yehuda, he's quiet. According to Rav Masna, he's screaming. What are you talking about, right? Why does he scream? Look at Rashi. I don't recognize you. I know. I don't know who you are. I stole from one of you. I don't know who you are. If we be quiet, it's like he's being moided to each one of them. And therefore, the halacha would be that why do you have to pay each one of them? And according to what Rabbi Yehuda heard from Rav, that you're quiet, this shtika is not. Metzia, he's able to say, "Hi, the shtiki that was quiet. To each and one of you. Maybe you're the guy. I'm not being moida, but I can't scream. Maybe you're the guy. I don't know. Okay, so that's what he says. Amar, going back over the Brisa, the Mishnah actually, but the Mishnah in Yavamis, Meniach gezela beinehem. You leave the gezela among the five. Umistalik. Now, what happens over here? The shakli la kula, the Ozli, and they're just going to leave it, and guys are going to fight over it? Like, what are you doing over here? Just to refresh our memories, if you go ahead and find something and you misupik who it belongs to, just leave it there. By Metzia, just leave it there. I don't know who it belongs to, because if I move it, what's going to happen? I don't know. So you just leave it. Don't take it. A suffix. You find a Metzia there. Don't go, and there's no simon in it. Just leave it. So just leave it. Okay, that was good. You found it in the ashba. It was covered up. Just leave it over there. Okay. Now, don't take it. If it's a suffix that a person left it there or not. If he did leave it there, if you do take it, don't return it. So the same thing over here. It's all the suffix who it belongs to. So how can he just leave it over there? So when it says mistalik amar av safra v'yaniach, it means don't give it to anyone v'yaniach, and you leave it. You leave it till someone proves it. Yaniach doesn't mean you leave it them and they fight over it. V'yaniach, and you leave it in your rishus. Only by Rava. Okay, now that was Reb Tarfin. Okay, so Reb Tarfin, we have a rice. Reb Tarfin says, "Ukim eskase." You don't give it back to them. You leave it, and they find out. Now, what did Rabbi Kiva say? Lo zu aderech to Metzia yedei chavasai, but you have to pay each and every one of them. Okay, you have to pay each and every one of them. Fred the Gemara. Only by Rava. Mi Rabbi Akiva lo zu aderech mitziasai midei aveira actually yishalem gezelu chol chad v'chad. Alma, you see what is Rabbi Akiva of the opinion? May sveika mafkina mimayna. The suffix, you can go ahead and take out money. You can extract money from four guys. And we don't say like Reb Tarfin, leave it in. It's mom in the middle of the suffix. Just leave it until you bring a raya. Guys, let them bring a raya that you're the one that he stole from. That makes the most sense. So where does Rabbi Kiva come off saying that you have to give each one of them? So here's the case. You have a mother and a son, and the son has half brothers from a previous half brothers. They have the same father, and so he has paternal brothers. The paternal brothers, they inherit him. The mother has Yarshim, who would inherit her. Good. So now, if the mother dies first, then her son inherits him. He's the only game in town. He's going to inherit. He's the only game in town, and thus his half brothers, right, from this, will go ahead and inherit him. Conversely, if he dies first, right, then, and he's the only Yerush in town, the mother's Yarshim will inherit her, right? That's the setup. So here's the question. A house falls in, and now you have a suffix. Who died first? There was an earthquake. There was an earthquake, and the house fell in, right? In Yani Diyayma. And the house fell in. So Nafla Abayas Alav, Ba'alimai, house fell in on him and his mother. Yarshia ben, his half-brother, say what? Aimrim, Ha'im Mesa Rishayna, the mother died first. He consequently inherited the mother, and now we're inheriting him. The Yarshia Aimrim, no. Haben Mesa Rishayn, and the mother has no other Yarshim, blood Yarshim from her family, but she has blood Yarshim, an uncle or somebody else. Elu Ve'elu Maidim, even though Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel have a slew of machloikasin in Masechta Baba Basra, a whole bunch of machloikasin, over here, they're Maida Sheyach Laiku. They're Maida over here that you would divide it. They Maida over here, even though, again, there they argue constantly, and here, they're Maida that what, Yach Laiku, you're going to go ahead what, and Yach Laiku, and you won't say that what, that the Chasim Ches Kasam. Bam Rebbe Kiva, Maida Ni Bezu, Shen Chasim Ches Kasam. They'd have to bring a raya. They'd have to bring a raya. So let's get this straight. Two cases, guys, outside. I have a case of stealing. It's a mammon that's a suffix who only stole from one of them. You don't know who. It says Rabbi Kiva, you pay each and every one. You don't leave the money like it is. Over here, you have a suffix. You have a suffix also. Which died first? Who does it belong to? Yoshia ben Yoshia Ain. What do? You leave it. What's the difference? What's the difference? Why? In both cases, you don't know who. One case he's saying pay each and every one of them, and the other one you're saying just leave it. That's the kasha. And for the Gemara, I'll tell you what the teretz is. Amalei Hassam over there, Shema b'Shema. Over there, no one knows for sure when the house fell in. Each one is timing maybe. Maybe the mother died first. Maybe the Ben died first. Gazel echa mechamisha, bari v'shema. It's bari v'shema. It's, in other words, there's muchzik over here that one of these person owns the money. You stole from one of them, and they're each claiming I'm the one. So it's not by a case of shema v'shema, says Rabbi Akiva, you leave the money. By a case of bari v'shema, then you go ahead and you pay each and every one. Our Mishnah over here. I stole from you a mana. Again, these guys are not claiming anything, guys. Guys, remember? He's coming to be mowed himself. So no one's claiming. So each one is a shema. The shema v'shemahu. The ketani loisen l'zem mana. So you see a kasha on Rabbi Akiva of our Mishnah to Rabbi Akiva of Nafal Abayis. We made a distinction, guys, between Rabbi Akiva, Naflo Abayis, and Rabbi Akiva of stealing 5. By Naflo Abayis, you think it's Shema, just leave it. By Gozel, Chamesh, you stole from one of them, Vada, you stole, it's about each one's timing, I'm the guy, then you pay. Here's our Mishnah, it's a Shema v'Shema, and you're paying, right? It's just, no one's claiming it, he's coming on his own volition, and okay, says the Gemara. But our Mishnah is Shema v'Shema, who? The Ketani Neslan Zemana Zemana. Now, what's the obvious question? Maybe our Mishnah is not Rabbi Akiva. Just like we said before, maybe the Mishnah is not Rabbi Tarfin. Says, no, well, my Rabbi Akiva, he, the Ketani Allah, the Ahi, my Rabbi Tarfin, Ba'amal Shnayim Gezalti Lechem, Nechem Manam, Ve'eni Deim Izchem. Now, Moida Reb Tarfin. Who's Reb Tarfin Moida to, guys? The Reb Tarfin who argues by Chamesh in Masech Yavamis on Rabbi Akiva is Moida in Mishnah in our Mishnah to who? Obviously to Rabbi Akiva. So you see, Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion by a Shema v'Shema you will be Moisin Zemana Zemana. What's the difference between Rabbi Akiva's Shema of the house falling in, where you're saying leave the money and in status quo, and the Shema v'Shema of our Mishnah that is Moida to Reb Tarfin that Moisin Zemana. Leman Moida Rabbi Akiva Maplukta. Umayda Shema v'Shema who? How do you know our Mishnah Shema v'Shema? Chadad loy katani toiv mesai, right? He's not being toiveya. No one's being toiveya. V'oid hatani rabchia ze'oim eni yadeya ze'oim eni yadeya, right? In the case of what? This one says I don't know, and this one says I don't know. Oh, that's a teretz. So The Tana Reb Chia Za'im Eni Yadeya, the Za'im Eni Yadeya. Let's see Rashi. Where the lines get wide, about 4 lines down. V'oid, Tani Reb Chia Za'im Eni Yadeya v'Za'im Eni Yadeya. V'loy Gasin Yachloku. V'hachi Perushay. V'oid, Tani Reb Chia Lahanach Masnisan. Because Zalti Echmehem Mikem B'Teisefta. He learned this Mishnah where I stole from one of you. V'Tani Lahachi Ama. V'Shnayim Gazalti Echmehem V'Eni Yadeya Eza Za'im Eni Yadeya v'Za'im Eni Yadeya. Nice and Zemana. So guys, each one says, I don't know if it's me or not. Alma b'Shema b'Shema skin. Guys, 2 proofs that it's speaking Shema b'Shema. 1, he's moided to Reb Tarfin, and 2, Reb Chia elaborated upon our Mishnah, where this guy is saying, I owe one of you, and each one is saying, I don't know. So all we did was buttress the kasha of Shema b'Shema by Nefilas Habayis, where it's a Shema b'Shema. Rabbi Akiva's of the opinion, what? Leave the money. Our Mishnah, where it's a Shema b'Shema, which we've proven it's a Shema b'Shema, either he holds like he's a ton of the Mishnah, and in addition, Rabbi Chia explaining our Mishnah, and he's saying what? Give a money to this one and give a money to this one. How do you explain that discrepancy by Shema b'Shema? That's the Gemara's kasha. And for the Gemara, okay, it's speaking what? Where he wants to be Yotzei Shema. No, it's not a kasha. Really, what's the halacha by Shema b'Shema? Like the falling house. What do you do with the money? You leave it. Why in our Mishnah are you taking it out? Because the guy wants to be Yotzei Shema. He wants to be squeaky clean. Okay, so Baruch Hashem, it worked out. This is going back, guys. Remember the case before? We had, what was the difference between Bapikadin, fellas? Where it was one person, right? In that case, one person, he should know. In the case of what? Where it was 100 and 200, it was like one person. Mashma, 2 people at the same time, you don't know, right? 2 people at the same time, you don't know. Further Gemara. Anytime it's given in 2 bundles, Havilei the Medik, he should have been more careful. That's the case number 1, right? Two people entrust the roya to watch the sheep, and then the halakha is you don't each one get a sheep. They claim a sheep. You don't say that. Why not? They get. You just told me if 2 people, he should have been medayik. Says that look at the bottom. In other words, it's speaking in that case where the roya, you brought it over here. It was turned in a different direction, and therefore he went have the medik. And therefore, since he wasn't watching what was going on, it's not expected him to know who gave what. We said 2 dinim in the Mishnah. Shnei Kalim, one was worth 100, one's worth 1,000, and you break one according to Rashi. According to Metzia, you sell one, and we had the case of money. So it was the exact same case. This one says 100, this one says 200, yehi munach. This one says 100, this one says 1,000. You go ahead, 900, yehi munach. Says so tzricha. You need to tell me money, and you need to tell me Kalim. Diashmin and hach kamaisa, the case by money. By he come rabbanan mishum delekab seda. There's no loss, 100, and the other 100 staying in place. Aval Baha, they could say that the Gadol, right? There's Pseudo of the bigger Kli. That's why Rashi learns it's broken Pashtus. He's learning it's Pseudo. According to the Book of Yosef, you're not getting back the Kli Be'en because you're selling it, right? Right? Ema Moidelu Rabbi Yossi. I would say it's Moidelu Rabbi Yossi that what? That Mahefsed Ramai, and don't touch anything. No one get anything. Again, what's the case? The Tanakama says 100, other 100 yemunach. The kli, small kli, large kli, sell the large kli, break the large kli, yemunach. But says, I see in case I have said a ramai, right? You want to facilitate the guy's going to go ahead and incentivize him to go ahead and admit it. What's going to incentivize him to admit it when he doesn't get back his object? So I would say that's by money because why? You didn't affect the kli, it didn't affect the money itself. It stays be'en. Mashen came where you affect the kli. Maybe he's moida that. And came I have said a ramai, and therefore you just leave it. Kamash malon, even when you're going to break the kli, according to Rashi, very geshmak, you're going to go ahead and say each one gets their part, and the rest is yehi munach. The case by Kalim, because he doesn't want you to break a kli. When it comes to cash, where there's no going to be, this guy gets 100, this guy gets 100, so there's no big spitz, the other 100 staying intact. So tzricha. Now, there's a lot of, makes no sense, guys. Rabbi Yossi gave you a reason. Rabbi Yossi tell you the reason why you leave the whole thing over is to incentivize the Ramai to tell the truth. So now, how could you have a havamina by money that Rabbi Yossi would say they're moided to the chachamim? No matter what it is, they're not going to be moided. You want the Ramai to admit the truth. Once he gets back something that's originally his, he's not going to admit it. So says the Gemara, where does he say his din? Because you're going to break the kli. Hashem by money, he'd be moided to the chachamim. What are you talking about? He won't be moided to the chachamim. He gave a reason. My hefsed Ramai. Fred Gemara Kasha, but time Amen Aleph. But time of the Rabbi Yossi Mishum hefsed Ramai who? Not because what the kli is going to be broken or the money is going to be intact. Rabbi Yossi says his reason. Both are what? Both are for the chachamim, and v'lo afsu katani. Not only money, but even a kli. Not only money where the money is going to remain intact, that they say yehi mana yehi mana, but even a kli where you're going to have to break it. He says yehi mana yehi mana. Now einachinami, had it been in the reverse order, had you just told me the case of kli, it'd be unnecessary to tell me the case of money. Wish everyone a very good Shabbos. Let me get I have to get my tehillim.